It's a really good game and tool to practice the word no, getting comfortable with saying it and hearing it. And it's very enlightening because there's going to be some times where you feel like you have to say yes, but you don't want to. And now you're going to be more comfortable to say no to things that you used to not be able to. And then you'll really learn to be comfortable hearing no and being okay with it.
This conversation sits right at the intersection of mental health, safety, and storytelling. With projects like Heated Rivalry shining a spotlight on the role of intimacy professionals, it feels like the perfect moment to talk about the people behind the scenes who are helping create safer, more supportive environments on set and why that matters so much for our mental well-being. Our guest today is Christina Jazzar. With over 30 years in the entertainment industry, Christina is a performer, choreographer, and intimacy coordinator. She's also certified in mental health first aid and psychological first aid, which really speaks to the heart of her work. This is a conversation about what it really means to feel safe and how that connects to our mental health more than we might think. Welcome to the halfbetty podcast, Christina.
Hello. Hi, friends. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for your time. I know you are always very, very busy on set and in theater and in film and TV. And we are talking about mental health this month, and what a perfect way to start a conversation and talking about the job that you do and how you're helping people and how you're coordinating and how you're making these sets feel a little bit more connected, and find out how this job came to be and hear more about your story.
Yes, thank you. One thing I noted in the bio, it said intimacy professionals, and like there's a gamut in that title. And I really go by intimacy coordinator, but there are intimacy directors for theater, intimacy coordinator for film and TV, and well, intimacy professionals for life, I'm sure. But it's really grounding in communication and observation, and that's something I love to do.
You've always been in this industry of theater and film and TV. What was the moment when you started getting curious about intimacy coordination?
I was working on The Shape of Water as one of the choreographers. And working with that team, and we were going into Nightmare Alley, actually. And the producer on that show had mentioned, have you heard of intimacy coordination? Because I think you'd be really good at it. And I was like, no, what is that? And then I looked into it, and my body had a visceral reaction to it. So yeah, it was very cool and kind of him. And then I spoke to my agent if they knew anything about it, and one of my besties, Amy Wright, another choreographer. And yeah, it was the end of 2019. And it just kind of exploded after that, after the Me Too movement. And maybe this doesn't sound right, but COVID shutting down our industry was a blessing for me to pause and have time to educate myself during the pandemic. I think just having the moment to be able to pivot, turn. And Krista probably knows this about me, but I'm not shy to ask questions or just to ask, because the worst is you're going to get a no. And that's where your starting point is when you're asking a question, or asking a favor, or asking for assistance. So I've never been shy to ask for help. And yeah, I remember in the pandemic, just reaching out to all of these individuals that had already started in intimacy coordination. There was Siobhan Richardson, someone who really helped me out the gate, Canadian. Leaning in where to look, what to do, all those things. And so, yeah, it was really fantastic. I was just writing everyone, because everything at the time was being taught in person, and we couldn't go anywhere because we were all grounded. So I was just emailing and reaching out and writing and asking, and people were so kind and generous to respond back and start some training. And Amanda Cutting from Vancouver, who started Principal Intimacy Professionals, which is decolonizing the education process, meeting people where they're at financially, and having inclusive education for different learning types. So yeah, it was just super special to be at the forefront of that movement and that education system, and having Amanda Cutting as a mentor was pretty special. And anyway, I jumped on really quickly because I just felt like this is what I meant to do.
What a story. It's really fun to come into a conversation when you actually don't know a lot about a person's background, because you have the lens of being curious about everything. And so I love that Krista and I get to play this duo, with Krista having such deep awareness of who you are and your story, and then me coming in fresh. Part of what we're doing with halfbetty is really kind of identifying this interesting center life, as some of us are now calling it. And what feels like more and more often we're hearing women sharing a similar knowing or a reflection or moment that seems to unfold that suggests a path forward that maybe they weren't on, or a pivot, or an adjustment. And I feel like that's starting to become more and more clear as we're talking to women in this part of life. When you found this new kind of path forward, and this visceral, which really lands, this visceral feeling that you had, was that at a point in your center life that you found to be a bit of that catalyst of shifting and changing and really moving forward in a completely new direction? Can you say more about how this kind of falls into this part of your life, and maybe a little bit of background on, where you were with family, friends, other parts of your career? Like, what was happening for you at that time?
Yeah, such a great question. Thank you. Well, in my career, as far as dance and choreography, and I really felt like, being blessed and the privilege of working with Roberto Campanella and all of the Guillermo del Toro stuff that was filming here, I really felt like I was getting into, some stride, because the entertainment industry is always a hustle. So there was that aspect where I was feeling a lot more confident in my career. In my home life, our kids were getting older. At the time, I had a son who was in grade 4 and a son who was in grade 7. But our kids have always been very independent because they have 2 actor parents. So our lives are all over the place. They had just, you're going with your cousins, you're going with your neighbors, you're hanging out with these friends. Like, we really had created this independence within our little nucleus. And yeah, the kids are pretty fun. They go with the flow. So there was that aspect of it. And as you said, sort of the center life, coming to an age of confidence and, being 45, going on 50, just feeling like, why do we put so much emphasis and effort, mental health wise, into external concerns and cares of, especially in our industry, how do we look, how do we present, what did we say, having all of these mental conversations. And if just going back to The Shape of Water, working with the actors on that, and bless Sally Hawkins and I was one of the few females on the creative team working so closely with her with the dance. And so we had this really great bond. And there was so much that, that character in that story was learning to do. I don't know if you've seen The Shape of Water, it's so special. But yeah, like sign language, deep sea diving, singing, dancing. I mean, Sally was incredible. So just the partnership there that she gave me, and I think I gave her, yeah, so when the question of intimacy coordination came up, I'm thinking as a choreographer, I'm going to choreograph movement, which is what I do so well. This is going to be so great. To then learn in the education all of the mental health coordination side of it, and the considerations and the conversations and the spreadsheets, and how, 10% of it is choreography, if you're lucky, if the creative team will let you in on that side of it. But mostly it's coordinating communication, understanding consent and boundaries, and facilitating a space for people to be able to communicate in all facets. And the other thing in the film and TV industry versus theater, theater, we're all around a table, we're communicating, we're creating and growing together. And then in film and TV, everyone's in their lane, they're all in their departments, they're in their own stages or a stage aspect of the production company. And then you come together and it's like communication can be broken. And as a performer, I've experienced that. So being this one department of one person who facilitates communication with everyone, so we all arrive on the same page, was so interesting and enlightening. Yeah, so I had to stop and think about my own life and was like, why haven't I been using these tools? Why are these tools being taught in our schools as far as consent and boundaries, like understanding yourself, having these conversations with who you are and how you wish to present instead of how should I present? How am I being perceived? So it definitely was that point in my life that it felt like a big leap of faith for someone who's been dancing since I was 3 years old. And it was just such a progression to jump into education again. It was really exciting, and I learned so much about myself.
And a different way to tell stories too, right? Because as a dancer, we can tell a story with our body, and then layering on singing. Now you're working with your voice, but to be an intimacy coordinator, you are a part of helping tell stories and just in a bit of a different way.
I would say that dance really leans into it in the sense that intimacy is conveyed a lot in body language. So that's something that I get excited, and the tension in our muscles, the eye contact we have, the breath that we're using. And usually when a scene isn't working, all you need to do is add breath. And it changes the whole thing, which is so interesting as we move through life and we think about our own mental health, that if we take a minute to breathe or breathe into those areas that we're holding stress, it just completely changed the dynamic of what we're going through.
It feels like that's such a wonderful addition to what we talked about earlier, which is this kind of self-awareness or a reflective moment. The other thing that seems to be coming up for women that we're talking to is this recognition of the power of taking a beat. We've heard a pause, a breath, a moment, and there are words that people are using that are all describing this same thing, which is carving out a space for us to sit with ourselves. Maybe more than we have for so many years in our 20s and our 30s, when the demands of growing a career or perhaps starting a family and trying to find the mix of those two things, and then taking care of others, which is often the role of women, including extended family or parents or what have you. So it is interesting that not only are we seeing in center life women becoming more aware of themselves and who they are, and also okay to be who they are and not mask, but we're also collectively recognizing the power of silence or a pause or a beat. And so I loved how you just explained that that's become something that you're really aware of, and how powerful it is, not only in acting and performance, but even just for yourself when you're in this work. It's really, really impactful to hear the affirmation that being with yourself and taking a moment is going to benefit not only yourself, but then all of those around you that you're interacting with. Have you found that the experience on set has shifted over the last number of years? And if so, What do you think it is that's changing, or what are you seeing or observing?
Well, when I started intimacy coordination about 5 years ago, one thing, there was some pushback or some lack of understanding. Of course, budget and film and TV always comes in. Do we have the budget for someone like this? What do we need them for? We've been doing this way and it's worked. Sure. But jump to 5 years ahead. I love that other departments are more mindful, other thought processes from the top. And I think that's what makes such a huge difference. I came off a show, Devil in Disguise, which was fantastic, the production company on that, but just everything from the top, being eco-friendly, being mental health aware, just how they serviced the production was a huge switch from when I started coming in as an intimacy coordinator, because it's so interesting as a dancer, someone who doesn't use their voice and has been, I guess, programmed to believe that there's 100 people in the wings waiting for your spots. Don't be a troublemaker. You just push your body to its limits and do all of these things. And that, in my internal bias, was just, it felt so, oh, that's just a kiss, or you're going to wear a bathing suit in front of everyone. It is what it is, but is it? So now, as a more veteran person and having these conversations, realizing there's no just in anything and everyone's story and experience is different, and these are all things that I never thought of before. So that's pretty cool. So to your question of have things changed, I think so. Even just working with Krista and how we collaborated on your film and the director for that project, wasn't sure they needed an intimacy coordinator. And now, bless, we become friends, and she reaches out all the time and wants to educate students and have conversations, because you don't know what you're missing until you've experienced it, or you don't know that you needed something until it happened. Yeah, things are changing. I mean, the world in general, the conversations of mindsets or manifesting or like storyboarding. Like I think of one tool that was so interesting that I used to bring to actors, saying, there's a questionnaire by Carly D. Weckstein, another intimacy coordinator in the States, and it has a whole bunch of questions about what you're willing to do as a performer regarding intimacy, like, would you be topless? Would you kiss? Would you simulate sex? When gets really detailed. So it's important to have those conversations with yourself, so that when you get with the power dynamic of a director or a production, or the job is between you and someone else, and they're asking, would you, and you want to just say yes and be the people pleaser. But to have practiced those questions or have that knowledge for yourself going into the space, there's power in that, and there's a clarity, and you can answer these consent and boundary questions with clear consent of yourself. So I bring that to my own life and think, oh gosh, I should ask myself these questions. Would I be willing to take this money on a job? Or would I be willing to work on a project that deals with this kind of content? Whereas before, I'm like, it's a job. I say yes, I need money. All of the things that you do as an artist. But now I'm more mindful. And then people, I feel like, who are making their manifestation boards or thinking of the things that they want in the future, it's such a great conversation to yourself. So those things that you want and you're looking for, what are you willing to do, or what feels comfortable to you to get there and in that process? So it's a great tool to help navigate your own story. Mm-hmm.
It's so interesting to hear, again, and we talked about this at the opening, which is so many folks out there now are served up something, whatever it is, after it's been highly scrutinized, edited, polished, produced, whatever it is. And that's just how we now experience much of what we experience, including moving into this space of AI and questioning whether what we're seeing is real or not. It feels like this is a bit of like an anchor to humanity, in that this is about humans with humans. The language of interaction, both the verbal language and the physical language and the emotional language of interaction. And so it feels as though this space is only going to continue to be not only deeply needed, but really important. This is what people are yearning for now, is the opportunity to have real, safe connection with others. And in the space of building film and building story, that's never going to go away. So how do we take the experiences that we're now having in society and put that into the creation of story in such a way that we are giving people the true sense of connection, or a true story of love, of intimacy, or the real things that happen out there in the world that are a little bit more challenging and difficult to see, but are important for people to be able to see. So tell us more about your view for what you want to continue to do, and how do you see your path forward with what you're doing? Like, how do you want to grow that?
Wow, so many things came up for me. Well, one is intimacy coordination. I love, like, when you were talking about managing stories, actors, and productions. I just love the word coordination in there, because that's really what we do. We coordinate with everyone. And to your point of real stories, something that came up was the way art and creativity works, in the sense that there's a gamut of art that appeals to so many different people. Some want the ridiculous love story that you'll never find in real life, but it allows you to escape. So there's the world for everyone's creation. When I get starstruck, it's not with the celebrities and the A-listers that I'm so privileged to work with. It's with the writers. I'm always like, without them, where would we be? Nowhere. So it starts with the writing, and it's really exciting that writers are leaning into this role, because, previously intimacy was written and they kiss and they have sex and there's, and they're intimate. Well, what the heck does that mean exactly? Because what my idea of passionate sex could look very different from what your passion looks like and Krista's passion looks like, or hot and heavy, or timid and shy, or any sort of emotions. It's just the perspective of every individual is so different. So it's important that the writing happens to explain the expression, if that's important to the story. And a lot of what intimacy coordinators do are actually question some of the writing. Is this necessary to have this scene here? Is it pushing the story along? Are we learning more about our characters? What's the dramaturgy about this scene? And I've talked myself out of work many times. Oh my gosh.
Oh no.
I have, yeah. I'm like,
say more, say more. That sounds interesting.
Curiosity. Yeah. All that curiosity and questioning, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, that I think that's one reason why I get called back, is because for me, it really is about the creation, the process, even the budget. Like, I just really lean into it and see what can be pared away, what needs to stay, how I can be involved, which actors, how it's laying out on set. And the presence of an intimacy coordinator isn't always needed. If the prep work and the conversation happens. Most of what intimacy coordinators do is the prep work. Having those conversations before I read a script, I make a script breakdown of all the scenes involving intimacy, heightened emotions. When these are things I love bringing the attention to. Intimacy can be familial, can be mother-daughter relationships and things like that. So I do quite a thorough script breakdown just to have those discussions. Doesn't mean I need to be involved, but just, has the production thought of this? Have they brought this to the casting call? Have they front loaded a lot of the expectations of what's going into it? Because at the end of the day, the more information an actor has, or a performer, a production, a cameraman, the more information we have, the more comfortable and confident we feel to create what it is we're doing. So I really live in that area, but I think it comes down to the writing. I'm excited to work on projects. Honestly, and Krista probably can attest to this, that it's the people that gravitate me. You know, I worked on Devil in Disguise, and when production called me, we had worked on a few projects together already, and it was such a great team, but I was so nervous about supporting the actors. No, of course I was going to do it, but the storytelling, I think Dahmer had just come out, and I'm like, I'm not as a human on my consent and boundary levels on my spreadsheet for myself. I really want to lead with joy and bring joy to the world and positivity and all that kind of stuff. So telling a story about a serial killer was a little bit, I need more information, but it was again done in such a beautiful way. The production company was unbelievable. The communication was bar none, and it was one of the best experiences I had, the most joyful experiences I had, even though we were telling such dark content. So that really speaks to me on what kind of projects I'd like to work with. It's like, who are we working with? How is it being navigated on the day-to-day, the set life, the way we work together as humans as we travel through space. I also work on adults, which it's on Disney Plus, and it's one of the funniest sets and shows and experiences. The writers are just the most wonderful people, and I've been blessed to do 2 seasons, but that also, it's like total opposites, but it's just all about being present. What is the experience for everybody there? I try to really be present, read the room, listen to the people, and lean into communication skills. It's funny, I always tell this story about my father because he was hearing impaired, and sadly he lost his eyesight in a hockey accident as well. So communication-wise, I always felt like from a very young age that I wanted to make sure he was hearing everything and knowing what was going on and communicating. And I think that's something else why I had a visceral reaction was this is like seems to just really encompass communication. And yeah, that's something I gravitate to.
That's beautiful. And I'm sorry to know of your dad's
No, it's good.
challenges and the way that brought you yet another knowing or an understanding of how meaningful it is to be able to communicate and all the forms in which we communicate. I'm curious, you've said visceral a couple times and it really resonates. And I appreciated how you described that you remember the moment when you heard about this work and this important role, how your body felt. And I'm curious, do you have ways that your body feels when you're on set or you're in your work? Or is there something that happens that you recognize is happening in your body when you're where you want to be or when you're finding your place?
Such an interesting question. Thank you.
And also how you choose to sit into it, move away from it, or navigate it too.
Well, like the interest peaked in this question in the sense that I was a dancer for all those years, or I am still a dancer. I was dancing before just to calm my nerves. My girlfriend, Julia Uhas, has Live with Ease company, and she has Feel the Freedom Friday, where she just plays a song and you can join her and you dance out. It's the best. Because now scientists are talking about how much dance and mental health movement exceeds drugs and all of those things. Not that we should do the drugs too and help ourselves in any way we can, but it's so interesting that this research has shown that movement and dance, especially the connection with music. Right, where was my perimenopause brain going with that question?
I'm curious how your body
yes,
feels.
My body.
Speaking of dance and speaking, how does your body feel? What is your experience of how your body feels?
Thank you. On set, so I'm really proud of this, of the sense that I don't know if this comes from dance or being an actor and being able to compartmentalize and separate. But when I'm working, I am there for everyone else. So it's interesting that in all other aspects of my life, I really feel like I know what I'm feeling and how I'm moving through life and the sensations. But when I'm working in this role, especially being present for others, I feel like I'm separated and again, am being over observant, clocking conversations, being ready to hear a wardrobe conversation with writers or something like it, not even really involving me, but also realizing it should be involving me because of the intimacy. So I'm just hyper aware in those situations of everything else but myself. So after, when we're done, my partner Anissa Teshbar and I, who's an intimacy coordinator here in Toronto, and we created this collective of intimacy coordinators. But we call each other and we debrief and we unload and we feel all the things then and go through all the things personally, like how it affected me. Of course, there's been some situations where it is affecting me on set. It's that slow pause, like when you said earlier, Andrea, about pausing. People are pausing, people are taking note, but it's so important when you're having a conversation to not be reactive, but to listen, is to add these pauses. So when I'm doing an actor intake, which is something I do after I've done a script breakdown, I've talked to production about the vision of what they'd like the intimacy to be. I connect with the actors and give the whole vision and find out where this lives in their boundaries. And it's those moments where you pause, and I think you clever ladies already know about this, I'm sure. But if you wait that extra second, more information comes. So I think that's an important thing and something I try to do when I'm on set and we're problem solving. Huge part of the job is problem solving. So I try to solve the problems or preempt the problems before getting to set. Have we thought about this? What if this happens? How are we filming it? What are the camera angles? I try and ask so many questions so that when we get there, there's less problem solving to do. Usually I'm by myself, so it's nice to just have someone, oh, you handled that well, or, you know, you get to discuss sort of different ways of looking at it, or how to move forward, how to check in afterwards. Part of our practice is bracketing and closure practices for actors. So there's so much buildup in your character development, backstory. How do they walk? How do they talk? Do they have props and things that they're always doing as these characters are building into the story? But then they're sort of left to their own devices to have closure on the character, on coming back into our vessel, which is ourselves, and walking through the world as Christina and not as the character I just did. So it's really nice to bracket these practices with closure. And that could be as easy as listening to music or having a shower after you get out of character. Or my favorite visual is Ted Lasso, when the team goes onto the field and they slap the sign above the door. That's them checking in, right? Clocking in and then coming out if they had a similar practice where they would high five each other or things like that. But yeah, it feels really good for me to be there for other people. So I probably 98% of the time have had the best experiences and know that I've done my best.
Sounds like you wouldn't be able to do this job if you yourself weren't grounded. What are some of the tools maybe that you've learned along the way over the years that have helped you personally with your mental health and your stability to ground yourself and be a whole person and put together so that you can go in and offer yourself up to others? What does that look like?
The energy exchange. I love how you visualize that. And then what came to mind is the oxygen mask that drops in an airplane, and put it on yourself before you can help others. They sort of use that analogy. Yeah, I think it's enveloped in the education and the process. You're being trained to check in and do all of these things and have all of these questions for actors, have all of these closure practices. Like, they're just giving you tools for actors. I would be surprised if anybody going through the education to become an intimacy coordinator is like, well, I don't need that. I'll just leave it for the job. Again, Julia Uhas, my friend who I was talking about, she just started the process of training to become an intimacy coordinator. So one thing she said was, I had no idea. She was like, Chris, I had no idea all of these things. And wow. And for someone like her who's so enlightened about breath work and somatic movements and being present, I was like, wow, it's pretty cool. I mean, some of the things I mentioned, breath work, taking moments for myself, asking myself questions about how I'm feeling instead of just finding ways like that. Oh, I love the sensory tool when you're feeling anxious or, clock that you're about to experience something that's maybe uncomfortable or heightened in yourself. You clock 5 things that you see and you just name them. So I see your microphone. Andrea, I see the flowers in the background. I see my gold necklaces. You name 5 things you see. And then you can name 4 things that you hear. So I can hear my fan turning. I can hear the birds outside, and you just sort of run this list through. So 5 things you see, 4 things you hear, 3 things you can touch. So like I could play with my hair. I could tap my fingers. I can feel the pressure. I can rub my thighs. And just if you're focusing on these things, it just calms your parasympathetic and it basically makes you be present. 2 things you can smell, and it doesn't have to be smell, actually. You can just take 2 deep breaths and then something that you can taste. So it could be a hot drink, a cold drink, or you could put a candy in your mouth. Actually, my parents were not making fun of me, but they were laughing about how I'm always telling everyone to put a sour candy because that instant sour candy reaction in your mouth takes you out of your mindset. So they do this in trauma training, but having a sour candy and basically everything in your brain goes to what that feels like, how it tastes, your muscles are tensing, just all the focus goes to that. And then you realize you're present, you're safe, and you get out of your head. So yeah, I'm always
and I'm salivating now.
exactly.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
Yeah, exactly. Or putting an ice cube in your mouth or something that just changes the dynamic of what you're experiencing. That is very helpful for your mindset.
And doing all of that without really drawing attention to what you're doing. That is the cool part about it, because I think sometimes we can get wrapped up in, who's watching me, who's looking at me, and that can layer up and build up too. And anxiety can kick in and it builds instead of settles. So those are,
But wouldn't it be great though, if our reaction wasn't, oh, I hope nobody sees this. It's so true. We're just so programmed that we're all so observant of everyone, and that person might need my help right now, or I don't feel scared or embarrassed or shy to say, I'm sorry, can I take a minute? Can I have help? Can you give me a hug? Whatever it is. That'd be amazing.
Are you a hugger, Christina? Are you a hugger?
Yes, and it's so funny because
we talk about hugs.
I hug with my leg too.
And so can we just dig into just a little bit more? Because this is something that Andrea and I are very curious about. The touch, the lack of touch, the connection, the disconnect. We're on our phones, faces in our computers and our phones and our tablets, all these devices. We've got AI now doing things for us, sending us to places where we're not sure what's happening. There's so much going on in the world. And I feel since the Me Too movement, COVID, our children are growing up in a very different environment than we had. We're talking more about consent, which is so good. It's so important. Where do you feel the world is sitting at right now? Just personally, as you, Christina, and how can we navigate these situations in a way where you talk about, well, can I have a hug, or is it okay to hug you? It's a really uncomfortable place to be for me personally right now, because I want to hug everybody. And I know that I need to ask?
Mm-hmm. So two things came up.
Yeah.
One thing is this fantastic tool, which was brought to my attention in consent training. And essentially, you can find a friend or your partner or the kids even, and you just play a 5-minute game of no matter what they say to you, you're going to say no. And you can clock how uncomfortable it feels for you when you're saying no to something that you agree that you actually would say no, like, Mom, can I jump off the roof? No, that feels a comfortable no for you. Mom, can I give you a hug? No, that's going to feel uncomfortable for you to say no, but it's a really good game and tool to practice the word no, getting comfortable with saying it and hearing it. And it's very enlightening because there's going to be some times where you feel like you have to say yes, but you don't want to. And now you're going to be more comfortable to say no to things that you used to not be able to. And then you'll really learn to be comfortable hearing no and being okay with it. So that's kind of a fun game or practice.
I like games.
Yeah.
Sorry,
well, the other thing I
trying to find
wanted
the
to
question.
add is that I feel like the folks that I've run into who genuinely care and are concerned and forthcoming and open are the ones that have the harder time understanding why a reason isn't given. Do you know what I mean? Because I feel like they want a reason because they want to understand. But I think that's a big part of acceptance, is that it's not your story, it's their story. It's not your experience, it's their experience. It's not your need, it's their need. And being able to separate with what someone is asking and offering and giving you to how you receive it and how your priority is understanding, or how it feels for you. You need to just be able to separate, let it go, and let them have their experience and just be thankful that whatever part of it was shared.
And what's coming up for me too is the listening part and the watching. You talked about body language, right? So paying attention, like when you're in a conversation and someone maybe is getting emotional and you want to be there for them, there are so many ways you can do that. It doesn't have to be physical connection. It can be with eye contact and also listening. I mean, I know for me doing halfbetty, that has been the one major thing that I have been learning about for myself, is truly paying attention, listening, giving my all to a person to really allow them to feel safe and trusted, that they can share their stories and their knowledge, with us. It's just such a gift to be able to tell the story and no one interrupt you.
Yes. Yeah.
It's interesting with this most recent conversation. I was thinking about yet another piece that seems to be part of the thread. This one is around, I'll use the word agency, and we use this in another conversation with another guest, but there is such a fray in the world now with everything that's going on that there's very little that feels like it's in our control, or there's less and less that we feel personally or in it with a sense of autonomy having control over.
Mm.
And so when we can give back and or create the space for somebody to feel as though they have the agency and the tools, that is such an enormous thing for people. And so with what you've shared around creating techniques for taking back a sense of calm, well, that's a tool that gives you agency. Or when you're working with folks on set, and you're giving them the full attention that you give them to understand what's important to them and what their boundaries are and what their consent is for and what it isn't for, you are giving them agency because they've now declared where they stand. And so that's going to be upheld because of your ability to be there with them saying, this is what we're setting up for you. We're setting up the space for you to be able to have the agency to say what you will and won't do. And so it feels like that's all part of it, even so much as the hugs that we were just talking about, which is fascinating. As Krista said, it's something that's really top of mind for us personally in our own lives, but also seeing how physical contact has changed so much since the Me Too movement to today, in so much as it's been largely lost, and or created as something that is scary, or if you're too close to somebody during COVID, you might actually get something, or you might give something that could cause death. And so touch has been vilified for so many reasons. And with that, we've seen demise, and we've seen then obviously the rise in loneliness and isolation and sadness and despair, and being able to give people back a sense of, okay, here are some guidelines, here are some tools to think about. I'm going to give you some information, some education, and then giving that to people. Like, it's just, it feels so good to have that back, and then to be able to make your own decisions. Even if your decision is, no, I'm not going to take a hug right now, but thank you. That is now something that people get to have, and not have to feel as though they're weird, or you've now just offended somebody, or like you owe an explanation, or what's wrong with you. Being able to give that to people is so powerful. There's many of us are women in our central lives who are rising to this space of building and empowering and advocating for and wrapping our arms around, with permission, other humans, and bringing them all together to help and guide and support one another, as opposed to running solo and running by ourselves, and at the cost of cutting people out, or not thinking about it as being, this is a collective that's more powerful when we're together, but just thinking that everything has to be done by me and me alone. So I can see how meaningful your work is, all the work that is being done by so many. And there's so many that still need to get on board, but we're making great strides.
That's it.
Yeah. I'm thinking about the film industry specifically, Christina, and I'm wondering if in the 5 years that you've been an intimacy coordinator, you've seen the changes and the adjustments of a crew member too, right? I mean, you're there for the actors, but you talk about collaboration in every department. You have seen and heard, I'm sure, so many different stereotypes and attitude and adjustments that a lot of crew members, I'm sure, are trying to learn themselves. Have you found that there has been a change? Have you seen that? And in which ways does that show up over the last 5 years?
Yeah. Thank you. That is a good question. It shows up in so many different ways, again, in art and in humanity. Everyone is just so vastly different, and there's just so many nuances. Well, one thing I wanted to say is building community. Just going back to what Andrea was saying about the change and the movements and things. But I think the importance, whether it's for touch or connection and things like that, is to build community, whatever that looks like for you, finding friends and things. And I just feel like the overwhelm in the world right now seems so heavy. And to bring it back to that one brick that you're laying, and you put your mortar and your grout and everything so perfectly, and just do that one brick and think about, baby steps. I love baby steps. What can we do today? How do we start? And the thing, Krista, about witnessing all the different departments and leaning into the community of the production, and how I try to bring to our producers and our PMs and our production managers and coordinators that it isn't just about, the actor. So it's nice. But I think the biggest thing I see when it comes to intimacy on set, in an overall generalizing, is people like to joke. People like to lighten the mood, lighten the situation, either for themselves or for others, and tend to bring up jokes. And I find it interesting if the jokes are leaning into what is being filmed or how we're filming it, let's not do that. Or if the jokes are just thrown aside, hearing laughter in a vulnerable, intimate moment for other people is jarring and is distracting. So there's other fun ways to lighten the situation. Oh my gosh, Hamnet and the whole conversation about the dance take, right? Brilliant, so brilliant. So let's leave the jokes aside, and then we will all release this energy together as a community. And for the audience listening, at a director on that film, it was such an emotional film that in certain takes, they knew it would come, but didn't know when. They would put music throughout the set so that in that take, everyone just basically got up and would dance it out, shake it out, again, get physical release, which is so nice.
It's so true. So many really like effective things that we can do that don't require us to register for something and pay $29 a month. You know what I mean? And that's what I love the most, is that we get to learn so much from each other when we share conversation with people. Can I ask you, are there 5 words that you feel that you've carried with you, or maybe they're new? Maybe there's something resonant with those words, or there's a feeling of those words embodying who you are.
Sure. Well, communication is definitely a huge word for me. And I think when I thought about this question, it's funny that all my words begin with C and my name's Christina with a C. So I also think I'm curious. I love getting to know people and asking questions. And yeah, there's a real curiosity, a creativity. I love creativity. And whatever that looks like. And then collaboration, which would be like community. I love collaborating. I'm not a solo artist. I want it to always be with people and do all the things. So collaboration is definitely a word, I think, that sums me up. And my newest C word that I'm super excited about is that I'm capable. I feel like in my center life, I realized that I am capable of anything. Really, if I decided that it's something I want to do, then I'm capable.
I feel like you would be a wonderful recipient of a 6th word that is also a C, and that is coordination.
Okay. Yay. That's cute.
Because you did such a wonderful job of sharing how connected you feel to that. And how that really does embody the work that you're doing.
I will take it and I'll put it on my trophy wall. A coordinator to me sounds like somebody who's going to get it done. And so I've been granted that title where they're like, well, Christina, you get everyone together and we'll do it. You start that ball roll. So I'm like, okay, I'll coordinate it. No problem.
And how great is that people can count on
I
you?
appreciate it.
That they know that something needs done. Christina would be the one that we know would make that happen.
That's nice.
Like what affirmation is that,
you.
right? To know that that's one of the many things that you're known for.
Appreciate it.
So
it's fun.
That's wonderful.
It's fun.
Christina,
thank you for sharing.
Is there anything that you feel we've missed about your job as an intimacy coordinator? Speaking about mental health, is there anything else that you wanted to share?
It's been so much fun to talk about it in the light that you folks are bringing forward with a mental health focus, or the communication, the community focus, and the conversation, and not just the job. You know, everybody wants to know what's happening behind the Wizard of Oz's curtain. Like, what are the gears? So there's a lot. I could talk about this forever, which is why I get so excited. And it's super exciting that the education continues, that there's still so much about what we do and what we offer and how we help productions and help folks, but externally to let the world know. I think it's so fun when people are outside the industry, and in the most simplest of comments, they weren't really having sex. No, they do not have sex in sex scenes. It changes the rating. It changes the show. It is all fake. It's so fun. It looks so real. Yeah, that means we're doing a good job.
And also on the flip side, to know that your job isn't just that either, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure there's a lot of assumptions that it only is sex scenes that you deal with as an intimacy coordinator, but it's just so much more. You just have such a way of bringing that beautiful calmness to wherever you are, not even just set, but anytime I'm around you, I just always feel so comfortable and grounded and heard and cared for. So please know that I care about you so much. And I'm grateful to know that you are being valued on set and in your community, and that you're being heard and listened to and understood. It's important. It's an important job you're doing. And I'm really grateful for everything you offer to people, humans, but the industry as well.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, we all should be enjoying our job. And I think that's a huge privilege, but also we just have to remember the work that we're doing isn't so urgent, isn't so serious, isn't so loaded, and that we're here to do a job and to hopefully enjoy it, and at the very least feel respected and heard.
And so much to do, which is so fun because there's so much more to do.
Yes. Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's such a baby, in like a baby department. Like we don't want to say we're only 6-7 years old, because people were doing the work before the world knew about it. But there's still so much on ourselves to change and grow. And it's constantly evolving, which again is part of being present, I think,
Yeah.
That
and being human. Oh my gosh.
Exactly.
Being human. The minute we think that we're done learning, I mean, goodness,
exactly.
What happens then? So yes, thankful that we can learn and care for each other, and just coming back to community, right? Yeah. It's all about community, how we can function together and care for each other.
Yes.
Okay, amazing. Thank you for your time and all your knowledge and tools that you've given us today. We're so grateful for you. I'm so grateful for your friendship. And I know that Andrea is so happy to have just inserted herself into your life for even just a moment. And we will continue to learn and grow together in this wild world we are living in. So thank you for today. Our listeners at home, listen, if you're not on Instagram, that's cool. It's your prerogative. But if you are, you can find us on halfbetty. You can also go to our website at halfbetty.com, and you can find us on YouTube. You can find us on LinkedIn too. Andrea writes a lot of really beautiful articles. I'm there too. Look, if this is something that you think somebody would be able to learn from, connect with, please share this episode as a way to connect with them, because at the end of the day, it's all about community and helping each other out. So thank you so much for listening. Until next time, friends.